Hey guys, it's your pops and best pops ever, and just wanted to read you and share another story with you. Now this one is really cool. Now one thing I want to tell you, and I haven't told you this from the beginning, but all of these stories are true. Every single one of these stories are true, and these aren't just made up stories. They're actually real, true stories, and that's why it's called the rest of the story, because a lot of them are just so amazing that you would never think they would be true. But, you know, the old saying goes that truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. So, but all these stories are true. And this one is really cool. And I think you guys will like it. So here we go. This one's called For the Love of Jim. Jack and Jim were the best of friends, devoted, inseparable. So when Jim lost both his legs in a railroad accident, Jack did everything he could to help. At first, Jim was certain his career with the railroad was finished. Then the company gave him another job as a signalman. His outpost was to be a lonely little stop more than 200 miles from anywhere. Jack went along to help with whatever he could on the new job, anything he could do to help his crippled friend. But the lengths of self-sacrifice to which Jack was willing to go are the rest of the story. Jim had come out of the hospital with no legs. He had barely recovered from the trauma of a double amputation when the railroad had given him the new assignment. Jack would live in a little wooden shack about 150 yards from the signal tower. It was going to be lonely out there, and there would be myriad difficulties and adjustments he would have to make. But Jack would help, for a while anyway. It was hoped for long enough for Jim to overcome these initial difficulties and make those first adjustments. In the beginning, Jack stuck around mostly for company. He swept out the shack and pumped water from the well and tended the garden and made himself useful in all the ways legless Jim could not. There was a little trolley, a single-seater, that led from the shack to the signal tower. Jack pushed Jim on that trolley several times a day, and he stood there while Jim operated the big levers in sequence. And eventually, Jack got so familiar with Jim's schedule that he began to walk out and operate the signals himself. Sure enough, pretty soon, in addition to the house cleaning and the rest, Jack gradually began to take over all these duties for the railroad, though officially he wasn't even an employee. There was a lot to remember on that job, a lot to be done. If a point had to be adjusted farther up the line, Jack would have to listen for the passing engine, flag him down, and give him a special key to make the adjustment. Daily responsibilities at the signal tower included working the levers that set the signals, as well as the tower controls that opened and closed the siding switches. There was a lot going on at that lonely little outpost, and soon Jack was doing all the work. But he never complained. After all, Jim was his friend. Jim had just gone through a terrible ordeal, and it was the least that Jack could do, for a while anyway. But a while turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months, and months turned to years. For more than 9 years, Jack kept house for Jim. Jack pumped water from the well, tended the garden, trudged out to the signal tower every day to operate the heavy equipment, until one day, after a bout with tuberculosis, Jack died. But in all those years, Jack, who had never before worked on the railroad, Jack, who had never before seen a signal tower in his life, never made a mistake. In 9 years, he never threw a switch incorrectly. He never sighted a car in error. In 9 years, there was not one accident or even a narrow miss on the Port Elizabeth main line because of Jack. Jack is buried in Cape Colony, South Africa, not far from the outpost where he worked for almost a decade for his love of his friend. His grave is a silent testament to selflessness. I don't think I mentioned that Jack, the friend who cleaned house and pumped water and tended garden and manned the switch tower that ran the railroad was not a man at all. Jack was a baboon. Ha! It's a true story. It's a true story. Jack was a baboon. Isn't that amazing? Ha! So cool. Anyway, I thought you'd like that one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.